The cold doesn't care about your feelings. That's the first thing you learn when you sleep outside. The second thing, nobody sees you. You're furniture. You're a trash bag someone forgot to pick up. You're invisible. My name is Sean Aldridge, and at 4:07 a.m. on a Tuesday morning in Greenville, South Carolina, I was 38 years old, curled up against the back wall of a Waffle House dumpster enclosure, and I was praying for sunrise. November in the upstate isn't like November in New York or Chicago. People think the South stays warm. They're wrong. When that wet cold rolls down from the Blue Ridge Mountains, it seeps into your bones like poison. It finds every hole in your jacket, every gap in your socks, every crack in your dignity. I pulled my sleeping bag tighter. It was a good one, Marmot brand. I'd found it outside a REI store in Asheville 3 years ago. Some rich hiker had returned it because the zipper was sticky. I'd fixed it with a candle and some patience. That sleeping bag had saved my life more times than I could count. My shopping cart sat 2 feet away. Everything I owned was in that cart. A tarp, 3 cans of beans, 2 bottles of water, a plastic bag full of clothes, my father's watch wrapped in a sock at the very bottom where nobody would think to look. That cart was my entire life. I checked it every few minutes. Old habit. On the street, people will steal from you while you're sleeping. They'll take your shoes right off your feet. I'd seen it happen. The Waffle House behind me was glowing yellow through the fog. I could smell bacon, hash browns, coffee. My stomach twisted, but I ignored it. I'd eaten yesterday. Half a burger from a trash can outside the Chili's on Pelham Road. It wasn't dignity, but it was calories. You learn to separate those two things real fast. I was just starting to drift off when I heard it. A scream, high-pitched, female, terrified. My eyes snapped open. For a second, I didn't move, couldn't move. My brain was doing the math that every homeless person does 100 times a day. If I leave this spot, someone might take it. If I leave my cart, someone will take it. Everything I own. Gone. Another scream, closer now, coming from the apartment complex across the parking lot, Maple Ridge Apartments. I knew the place. Security guard chased me off once for sleeping near their dumpsters. Then I saw it. Orange light flickering in a second-floor window. Fire. My chest seized up. My throat closed. For one horrible second, I wasn't in that parking lot anymore. I was 12 years old, standing in my pajamas on a frozen lawn in Minnesota, watching my childhood home burn while firefighters pulled 2 body bags through the front door. Mom, Dad, the fire had started in the basement. Faulty wiring. They never woke up. I was at a sleepover that night. Tommy Kendrick's house. We were playing Nintendo 64 and eating pizza rolls while my parents suffocated in their sleep. I've carried that guilt for 26 years. The scream came again, desperate now, choking. I was running before I made the decision. My legs just moved. I left my cart. I left everything. I sprinted across that parking lot like the devil himself was chasing me. The apartment building was old. 2 stories, wood frame, the kind of place they built in the 70s when nobody cared about fire codes. Smoke was pouring from a corner unit on the 2nd floor. I could see flames now, licking at the window frame. I took the exterior stairs 3 at a time. My lungs were burning. I hadn't run this hard in years. When you're homeless, you learn to conserve energy. Every calorie matters. The door to Unit 2C was hot to the touch. "Hello," I shouted. "Anyone in there? Help me, please, I can't." The voice dissolved into coughing. I kicked the door, nothing, kicked it again. The cheap frame splintered on the 3rd try and a wall of heat hit me like a physical force. The smoke was thick, black, greasy, not like wood smoke. This was synthetic, carpet, plastic, upholstery. The kind of smoke that kills you in 3 breaths. I dropped to my knees. The air was cleaner near the floor. I could see maybe 2 feet ahead. "Where are you?" I shouted. "Bedroom, I can't, my leg," I crawled. The carpet was hot beneath my palms. I passed a kitchen, a living room. The fire was concentrated near the front window. Looked like it started with a space heater. One of those cheap ones from Walmart that everyone's grandmother owns. The bedroom door was cracked open. I pushed through. A woman, maybe 60, African-American. She was on the floor beside her bed, one leg twisted at an ugly angle. Broken, probably. She must have fallen trying to get out. "I got you," I said. "I got you, okay? We're getting out." "My cat, Duchess, she's under the—" "No time." "We gotta go now." She was heavier than me, maybe 170. I was 150 on a good day, and I hadn't had a good day in 5 years, but adrenaline is a hell of a drug. I got my arms under her shoulders and I pulled. She screamed. That broken leg. God, that must have hurt. I'm sorry, we gotta move." The ceiling above us groaned. Something cracked, sparks rained down. I dragged her through the living room. The fire had spread to the couch now. The heat was unbearable. My arms were shaking. My vision was going gray at the edges. We made it to the door, the stairs. I don't know how I got her down those stairs. I think I carried her. I think maybe I fell and we tumbled together. The details are fuzzy. What I remember is the grass. Cold, wet grass against my cheek. The most beautiful thing I'd ever felt. I remember coughing, retching, spitting black mucus onto the ground. I remember sirens. I remember someone saying, "There's two of them, get the stretchers." And I remember with a clarity that cut through everything else thinking about my cart, my sleeping bag, my father's watch, my cans of beans, gone, all of it, gone. I had saved a woman's life and I had lost everything. The firefighters arrived first, then the cops, then the ambulances. The whole parking lot lit up like a carnival, red and blue lights bouncing off the fog. A paramedic put an oxygen mask on my face. Another one was working on the woman. Yolanda, I heard someone say. Yolanda Price. She was conscious, crying, asking about her cat. A firefighter found the cat 20 minutes later, alive, hiding in a bathroom cabinet. Yolanda cried harder. A cop approached me. Young guy, buzz cut, the kind who joined the force straight out of high school. "Sir, you the one who pulled her out?" I nodded. The oxygen mask made talking hard. "That was brave," he said. "Real brave. You a neighbor?" I shook my head. He looked at me, really looked. At my stained jacket, my matted hair, my shoes held together with duct tape, I watched his expression change, recognition, not of me as a person, but of what I was. You live around here." "Behind the Waffle House," I said. He blinked, wrote something in his notebook. "What's your name, sir?" "Sean Aldridge." More writing. "Well, Mr. Aldridge, you're a hero tonight. We're gonna need to take you to the hospital, get you checked out. That smoke inhalation's no joke." Hero. The word felt foreign, absurd. I wasn't a hero. I was a guy who used to sell copiers for a living. I was a guy whose wife cheated on him. I was a guy who lost everything in a courtroom and never recovered. I was nobody. But I nodded. Let them load me into the ambulance. What choice did I have? I had no cart, no supplies, no way to survive another night in the cold. As the ambulance pulled away, I saw a news van arriving, Channel 4. The vultures were circling already. I closed my eyes. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I thought about my cart one last time, that marmot sleeping bag, my father's watch, all gone. But Yolanda Price was alive. Maybe that mattered. Maybe it didn't. On the street, you learn not to think about things like meaning. You learn to focus on the next meal, the next safe place to sleep. The next sunrise. I'd made it to another sunrise. That was enough. It had to be enough. Greenville Memorial Hospital smelled like bleach and bad decisions. They wheeled me into the ER around 5:30 a.m. The waiting room was half full. A guy with a bloody towel wrapped around his hand. A woman holding a crying baby. A teenager who looked like he'd lost a fight with a sidewalk. Nobody looked at me twice. The triage nurse took my vitals, blood pressure, heart rate, oxygen levels. She asked if I had insurance. I laughed. She didn't. "We'll get you seen," she said, her voice flat. "Might be a wait." It was a 3-hour wait. I sat in a plastic chair and watched the TV mounted in the corner. Local news. They were already covering the fire. Aerial footage from a helicopter. The apartment building looked worse than I remembered. Half the second floor was gone. "Miracle anyone survived," the anchor said. "We're told a Good Samaritan pulled the victim to safety before firefighters arrived." Good Samaritan. That's what I was now. A nameless act of kindness, a 30-second story before the weather report. A doctor finally called my name around 8:45, Dr. Reeves. She was maybe 40 with tired eyes and a coffee stain on her white coat. "Mr. Aldridge, let's get you cleaned up and take a look at those burns." Burns. I hadn't even noticed. I looked down at my hands. The skin was red and blistered across both palms. Must have happened when I touched that door. "Can I shower first?" I asked. I haven't." She understood. Of course she understood. Doctors in emergency rooms see homeless people all the time. "Of course," she said. "I'll have someone bring you some clean clothes from the donation bin." The shower was small, institutional. The kind of tile that's been scrubbed so many times it's lost any color it ever had. I stood under the water and watched it turn black. Soot. Ash, 5 years of grime. I scrubbed my arms, my chest, my face. The water stung my burned hands, but I didn't care. I just kept scrubbing, kept watching the filth swirl down the drain, and that's when it hit me. The memory, not the fire from last night. The other one, the one from 5 years ago. I haven't told you about Bridget yet, have I? Bridget was my wife. We met at a sales conference in Atlanta in 2011. She was working for a pharmaceutical company. I was selling copiers for Canon. We bonded over bad hotel coffee and worse PowerPoint presentations. She was beautiful, blonde, sharp. The kind of woman who could sell ice to an Eskimo and make him thank her for it. We got married in 2013. Small ceremony. Her family didn't approve of me. I was too blue-collar, too Midwestern. My parents were dead, so it was just me and my best man, Donnie, on my side of the aisle. We were happy, I think. Or maybe I just thought we were happy. Maybe she was faking it the whole time. I'll never know. In 2018, Bridget got a new job, regional sales manager for a medical device company called Medcore Solutions. Her boss was a guy named Roger Rush. Handsome, rich, the kind of guy who wore suits that cost more than my car. The affair started 3 months later. I found out the way every idiot husband finds out. A text message. She'd left her phone on the kitchen counter and it buzzed while she was in the shower. "Can't wait to see you tonight. Same hotel?" The sender's name was Roger. I confronted her that night. She didn't even deny it. Just looked at me with those cold blue eyes and said, "I want a divorce." Simple as that. 3 words, 5 years of marriage, gone. But here's the thing they don't tell you about divorce. It's not just about who keeps the house or who gets the dog. It's war. And in war, the side with more money wins. Roger Rush had money, lots of it. He also had connections. His cousin, Harold Rush, the district attorney of Greenville County. I didn't know that at first, didn't know a lot of things. All I knew was that my wife was leaving me for another man and I was angry, so I did something stupid. I went to Roger's office. I was going to confront him, yell at him, maybe throw a punch, I don't know. I wasn't thinking clearly. What I didn't do was bring a weapon. What I didn't do was threaten to kill him. But that's not what the police report said. Roger claimed I stormed into his office with a knife. Claimed I held it to his throat and said I would end him. Claimed his secretary witnessed the whole thing. The secretary's name was Bridget. My own wife testified against me. They arrested me that night, charged me with attempted murder. I sat in county lockup for 6 days before my public defender finally got me in front of a judge. The prosecutor, Harold Rush, Roger's cousin, he offered me a deal, plead temporary insanity, and the attempted murder charge goes away. I'd serve no jail time, just mandatory psychiatric evaluation and 3 years probation. My lawyer told me to take it. "They'll bury you if this goes to trial," he said. "The DA has a personal stake. The judge plays golf with him. You don't stand a chance." So I took the deal, and that decision destroyed my life. See, when you have a felony on your record, even a reduced one, you become unemployable. Every job application asks that little question. Have you ever been convicted of a crime? And when you check yes, your resume goes straight in the trash. I lost my job at Canon, lost our house because I couldn't make the payments, lost my car. Lost everything. The divorce was finalized 2 months later. Bridget got the savings account, the retirement fund, everything we'd built together. I got a suitcase and a bus ticket to nowhere. That was 5 years ago, 5 years of shelters that were full. 5 years of temp agencies that never called back. 5 years of sleeping behind dumpsters and eating out of trash cans. All because I loved the wrong woman. The water in the shower turned cold. I shut it off. Stood there dripping, staring at my reflection in the fogged-up mirror. I barely recognized myself. When had my hair gotten so gray? When had those lines appeared around my eyes? I used to be somebody. Regional Sales Manager of the Year, 2016. Employee of the Month at Canon 4 times in a row. I used to wear nice suits and drive a company car and eat at restaurants where they put cloth napkins on the table. Now I was a skeleton in a hospital bathroom, grateful for clean water and borrowed clothes. I got dressed. The donation bin had given me a pair of jeans that were too big and a Clemson Tigers t-shirt, better than what I'd had before. Dr. Reeves was waiting when I came out. "Let's take a look at those hands," she said. The burns were 2nd degree, painful but not serious. She cleaned them, applied some ointment, wrapped them in gauze. "You'll need to change these bandages daily," she said. "Keep them clean, watch for signs of infection." Infection, right. Because I had access to sterile bandages and running water, she must have seen something in my face. "There's something else," she said. "We did a basic blood panel, standard procedure for smoke inhalation cases." My stomach dropped. "And Your white blood cell count is elevated, significantly elevated, combined with some other markers. She paused. Mr. Aldridge, when's the last time you saw a doctor? Before tonight, maybe 2019. She nodded slowly. You have an infection, a serious one. It's in your blood, we call it sepsis. If we hadn't caught it tonight, you might have been dead in a week. I stared at her, dead in a week. I had walked into a burning building, I had rescued a stranger, and the real danger was already inside me, had been for God knows how long. We need to start you on IV antibiotics immediately, Dr. Reeves said. You'll need to stay here for at least a few days, maybe longer. I can't afford, Mr. Aldridge. She held up a hand. The woman you saved, Yolanda Price, her son is a city councilman, her daughter-in-law is on the hospital board, your care has been covered, all of it. I opened my mouth, closed it, opened it again. I don't understand, she smiled, first time I'd seen her smile. You saved that woman's life, Mr. Aldridge, and now maybe we can save yours. By the time I woke up the next morning, I was famous. Not real famous, not Beyonce famous, but Greenville famous, local news famous. The kind of famous where strangers recognize your face at the grocery store and then forget about you 2 weeks later. A nurse had turned on the TV in my room. Channel 7, the morning show. Incredible story out of Greenville this morning. A homeless man is being hailed as a hero after rescuing a woman from a burning apartment building. There was my face. A photo I didn't remember anyone taking. I looked like hell, soot-streaked, wild-eyed, but alive. Sean Aldridge, 38, pulled Yolanda Price from her burning apartment in the early hours of Tuesday morning. Mrs. Price suffered a broken leg, but is expected to make a full recovery. Aldridge is currently being treated for burns and a pre-existing infection at Greenville Memorial. The anchor shuffled her papers. A GoFundMe page has been set up to help Mr. Aldridge get back on his feet. As of this morning, it has already raised over $16,000. I sat up in bed so fast I nearly ripped out my IV. $16,000. I grabbed the remote, changed the channel, another news station, same story, different angle. Remarkable act of selflessness, another channel. Gave up everything he had to save a stranger, another. The true spirit of heroism, my phone. I needed my phone. I didn't have a phone. I'd lost it months ago. Couldn't afford to replace it. A knock at the door. Mr. Aldridge? A young guy poked his head in. Early 30s, good suit, expensive haircut. My name is Brent Montgomery. I'm a reporter with the Greenville Herald. Do you have a few minutes to talk? I should have said no. I should have told him to get out. I'd had enough of reporters and cameras and people turning my misery into entertainment. But something stopped me. This was my chance. For 5 years, I'd been invisible. For 5 years, the system had chewed me up and spit me out. For 5 years, I'd known the truth about what happened with Roger and Bridget and that crooked DA, but nobody would listen. Nobody cared about the word of a homeless man, but now people were watching. Come in, I said. Brent Montgomery sat down in the chair beside my bed. He had a recorder and a notepad, old school, I respected that. First of all, he said, thank you for your service. What you did last night was incredible. I didn't do it for thanks. I know that's what makes it incredible. He clicked his pen. Mind if I ask you some questions about your background? Our readers want to know who Sean Aldridge really is. Here it was, the moment of truth. I could give him the sanitized version. The version where I was just a down-on-his-luck guy who made some bad choices. The version that made everyone comfortable, or I could tell him the real story. What do you know about the district attorney? I asked. Brent blinked. Harold Rush, what about him? You know his cousin. No, I don't think so. Roger Rush works at MedCore Solutions, regional director now, I think. He's the one who's been sleeping with my ex-wife since 2018. Brent stopped writing, looked up at me. Mr. Aldridge, 5 years ago I found out my wife was having an affair with Roger Rush. I went to confront him, just to talk. I didn't bring a weapon. I didn't threaten anyone, but Roger filed a police report claiming I held a knife to his throat. My own wife backed up his story. I could see the wheels turning in Brent's head. This wasn't the puff piece he'd expected. The prosecutor on my case was Harold Rush, Roger's cousin. He offered me a plea deal, temporary insanity, no jail time, but a felony on my record. My lawyer told me I had no choice. The system was rigged against me. Brent was writing furiously now. That felony is why I've been homeless for 5 years. Nobody will hire you when you've got attempted murder on your background check. Nobody cares that the charges were bogus. Nobody cares that it was all a setup to protect a rich man's affair. I leaned back against my pillows. You want to know who Sean Aldridge really is? I'm a guy who sold copiers for 15 years. I was good at it. Employee of the month 4 times. Regional sales manager of the year in 2016. I had a house, a car, a 401k. I had a life. And it was all taken from me because I trusted the wrong woman and tried to confront the man who stole her. Silence. Brent looked at his notepad, then at me, then at his notepad again. That's a hell of an accusation, Mr. Aldridge. It's not an accusation, it's the truth, and I'll give you names, dates, case numbers, whatever you need. I've got nothing left to lose. He stared at me for a long moment. Why tell me this? Why now? Because last night I ran into a burning building. Today, people are paying attention to me for the first time in 5 years. Tomorrow, they'll forget I exist. If I'm going to have a voice, even for a few days, I'm going to use it. Brent Montgomery closed his notepad. Mr. Aldridge, I'm going to be honest with you. What you're describing, a sitting DA conspiring to frame a private citizen, that's not a human interest story. That's an investigation. That's months of work. That's potential lawsuits. I know. The paper might not want to touch it. I know that, too. He stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the parking lot for a long moment. I've been a reporter for 12 years, he said quietly. You know what I've learned? Everyone has a story they think is important. 9 times out of 10, it's not. It's just ego, just hurt feelings dressed up as injustice. He turned back to me. But every once in a while, someone walks in with a story that actually matters, a story that could change things. He pulled out a business card, set it on my bedside table. I'm going to look into this. No promises. If your story checks out, I'll write it. If it doesn't, you'll never hear from me again. Fair enough. He shook my hand, gently mindful of the bandages, and headed for the door. One more thing, he said. The couple who started that GoFundMe, Ray and Diane Ponzo, they're on their way up to see you. Ray owns a distribution company, made his money in HVAC parts. Good people. Why are they coming to see me? Brent smiled. I think they want to offer you a job. 20 minutes later, Ray and Diane Ponzo walked into my hospital room like they owned the place. To be fair, they probably donated enough money to this hospital to name a wing after themselves. Ray was maybe 65, silver hair, Santa Claus build. The kind of guy who looked like he'd be equally comfortable at a board meeting or a backyard barbecue. Diane was younger, maybe 55, elegant, the kind of woman who wore pearls to the grocery store and made it look natural. Mr. Aldridge? Ray's handshake was firm, confident. Ray Ponzo, this is my wife, Diane. We're the ones who set up that fundraiser for you. I heard. I don't know how to thank you. Don't thank us, thank Yolanda, she's my wife's cousin. I blinked. I didn't know that. Small world, isn't it? Diane settled into the chair Brent had vacated. Yolanda called us from the ambulance, wouldn't stop talking about the man who saved her life, said you left everything you owned behind to help a stranger. My cart, my sleeping bag, my father's watch. It was just stuff, I said, but my voice cracked a little. Ray pulled up another chair, sat down heavily. Mr. Aldridge, I'm not going to insult you by dancing around the subject. I did some research on you this morning. Before the trouble, you were a hell of a salesman, Cannon, right? Regional Sales Manager of the Year. 2016. Yeah. My company, Ponzo Enterprises, we distribute HVAC equipment to contractors all over the Southeast. We're always looking for good salespeople. He leaned forward. I'd like to offer you a job. I stared at him. Mr. Pons? Ray, I have a felony conviction on my record. Temporary insanity, plea on an attempted murder charge. No legitimate company is going to. I know about the conviction. Ray waved his hand. I also know how to read between the lines. The prosecutor was the victim's cousin. Your wife testified against you? Come on, I've been in business for 40 years. I know a railroad job when I see one. Diane reached over and patted my arm. What my husband is trying to say, Mr. Aldridge, is that everyone deserves a second chance. You risked your life for our family. The least we can do is give you an opportunity. I didn't know what to say. My throat was tight. Something was stinging my eyes. There's more, Ray said. We own a small apartment building on the east side, nothing fancy, working-class neighborhood. We've got a vacant unit, 1 bedroom. It's yours if you want it. First 6 months rent-free. Now I knew I was dreaming. This was a dream. A fever dream from the infection. I was actually still lying behind the Waffle House, dying of sepsis, and my brain was inventing this fantasy to comfort me in my final moments. Why? I managed. You don't even know me. Ray leaned back. Tell me something, Sean, those sales numbers you put up at Canon, the regional award, how'd you do it? Strange question, but I answered anyway. I listened. Most salespeople talk too much. They walk into a meeting with a script and they stick to it no matter what. I learned to shut up and pay attention, figure out what the customer actually needs, then find a way to give it to them. Ray nodded slowly. A small smile crossed his face. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. He stood up, extended his hand. When you get out of here, come see me. Ponzo Enterprises, we're on Lawrence Road. You can start as soon as you're healthy. I shook his hand, still felt like a dream. One condition, I said. Ray raised an eyebrow. Probationary period, 90 days. If I don't perform, you let me go. No charity, no pity. I want to earn this. Ray Ponzo grinned. Mr. Aldridge, I think we're going to get along just fine. 3 days later, Brent Montgomery's article hit the front page of the Greenville Herald. Homeless hero claims FRAMEUP by DAS family. It was a bombshell. Brent had done his homework. He'd pulled the court records, interviewed my old public defender, found inconsistencies in Roger Rush's original police report. Even tracked down the building's security footage from the day of my attack, footage that mysteriously showed me entering the building empty-handed, despite Roger's claim that I'd been carrying a knife. The article didn't prove anything definitively. It was careful about that, lots of allegedly and according to sources. But it raised enough questions to get people talking. Social media exploded. I didn't have a phone yet, but the nurses showed me some of it on their tablets, Twitter threads analyzing the case, Facebook groups demanding an investigation, a hashtag, Justice for Sean. It was surreal, terrifying, exhilarating. And then Bridget showed up. It was my 4th day in the hospital. I was sitting up in bed, eating Jell-O and watching the local news, more coverage of the story, more talking heads debating whether Harold Rush should recuse himself from any further involvement when the door opened. She looked good. Of course she looked good. Bridget always looked good. That was part of the problem. Her blonde hair was shorter now, professional. She was wearing a designer dress, Tory Burch if I had to guess, and heels that probably cost more than my monthly food budget when I was sleeping outside. Sean. Her voice was soft, concerned, practiced. Oh my God, Sean, I just heard. Are you okay? I set down my Jell-O cup. How did you get in here? I told them I was your wife. She moved toward the bed. Technically, we never finalized the divorce papers, so? We finalized them 5 years ago. I signed them in a courtroom while you watched. She stopped. Something flickered in her eyes, recalculation. Sean, I know things ended badly between us. I know you're angry, but when I saw the news, when I heard what happened. She pressed a hand to her chest. I just had to see you. I had to know you were okay. I watched her, this woman I had loved, this woman I had married, this woman who had looked me in the eyes and lied to a prosecutor about a knife that never existed. What do you want, Bridget? I want to help. She stepped closer. I saw the GoFundMe. I saw how much money people are raising for you. That's wonderful, Sean. It really is. But it's going to get complicated. Taxes, lawyers, you're going to need someone to help you manage all of this. There it was, the angle. She wasn't here because she cared about me. She was here because she smelled money. Because $16,000, now up to $32,000 according to the last update, was a lot more than she'd expected a homeless ex-husband to ever have again. And maybe something else too. Maybe she was scared. Maybe she'd seen Brent Montgomery's article. Maybe she was worried about what would happen when people started asking questions about her testimony. You testified against me, I said. Sean, you stood in a courtroom and told a prosecutor that you saw me hold a knife to Roger's throat. You told him I said I was going to kill Roger. You lied. I was scared. Roger told me what to say. I didn't understand. You lied. My voice echoed in the small room. A nurse poked her head in, concerned. I waved her off. Bridget's mask slipped, just for a second. Underneath the carefully applied makeup, underneath the designer dress and the expensive haircut, I saw something cold, something hard. You're going to ruin everything, she said quietly. That reporter is digging into things that should stay buried. If this goes any further, Roger could lose his job, Harold could be disbarred, and you could what? Face consequences, finally be held accountable for destroying my life? She straightened her spine. The softness was gone now. The concerned wife, routine abandoned. You were always weak, Sean, that's why I left you. You had no ambition, no drive. You were content to sell copy machines for the rest of your life while Roger was building an empire. You want to blame someone for what happened. Blame yourself. I reached for the call button beside my bed, pressed it. What are you doing? Calling security. Her eyes widened. You can't. You are my old life, Bridget. You testified against me. You helped put me on the street for 5 years, and now you walk in here pretending to care because there's money involved. A security guard appeared in the doorway. Big guy, ex-military, probably. This woman is not authorized to be here, I said calmly. Please escort her out. Sean, don't do this. Ma'am, the guard stepped forward. I'm going to have to ask you to come with me. Bridget's face went through about 7 different emotions in 3 seconds. Shock, anger, calculation, fear. This isn't over, she said as the guard took her arm. Yes, I said, it is. I watched them walk away, watched the door close behind them. My hands were shaking, my heart was pounding, but I felt something I hadn't felt in 5 years. Power, not much, just a little, but enough. Ray Ponzo came to visit that afternoon. He'd seen the article, seen the social media firestorm. He sat down in his usual chair and looked at me with those sharp businessman's eyes. Hell of a week you're having. You could say that. That reporter, Montgomery, he's good. The questions he's raising about the DA's office. That's going to get messy. You know that, right? Investigations. Depositions, maybe even a trial. I know. You ready for that? I thought about Bridget's face when security escorted her out. Thought about her saying this isn't over like it was a threat. I've been ready for 5 years. Ray nodded slowly. Good, because here's the thing, Sean. This story, it's not going away. In fact, it's probably going to get a lot bigger before it gets smaller. You're going to need support. You're going to need stability, a job, a place to live, people in your corner. He pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket, slid it across the bed to me. What's this? Keys to your new apartment, and a formal job offer from Ponzo Enterprises, sales representative, base salary plus commission, health insurance, the whole package. I opened the envelope. Inside was a set of keys and a single sheet of paper, an employment contract. The salary was modest, $32,000 a year plus commission, but it was more money than I'd seen in half a decade. It was legitimacy, it was a future. You didn't have to do this, I said. No, I didn't. But here's what I've learned in 40 years of business, Sean. Character matters, not degrees, not pedigrees. Character, and a man who runs into a burning building to save a stranger, that's character. He stood up, buttoned his jacket. Come see me when you're discharged. We'll get you set up, get you started. He was almost to the door when I stopped him. Ray, he turned. I'm going to make this worth your investment. I'm going to be the best damn salesman you've ever had. Ray Ponzo smiled. I know you will, son. I know you will. That night, alone in my hospital room, I lay awake and stared at the ceiling. Somewhere out there, Bridget was probably panicking, calling Roger, calling her lawyer, trying to figure out how to contain the damage. Somewhere out there, Brent Montgomery was still digging, still asking questions. Still following the thread that led from a homeless man behind a Waffle House to a corrupt district attorney's office. Somewhere out there, Yolanda Price was recovering in her own hospital room, surrounded by family, alive because a stranger had cared enough to act. And here I was, clean sheets, warm room, IV antibiotics fighting the infection that had been slowly killing me for months. Tomorrow I would sign a job offer. Next week I would move into my own apartment. In 90 days I would prove to Ray Ponzo that his faith in me was justified. And eventually, maybe months from now, maybe years, the truth about Roger Rush and Harold Rush and Bridget Aldridge would come out. Justice would be served, not the dramatic Hollywood kind of justice. The slow, grinding, bureaucratic kind. The kind that takes depositions and subpoenas and newspaper articles that nobody reads all the way through. But it would come. I closed my eyes. For the first time in 5 years, I didn't dream about being cold. The apartment smelled like fresh paint and possibility. Unit 4B, second floor. 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, a kitchen the size of a closet, and a living room with a window that faced east. Morning light. I'd have morning light for the first time in 5 years. Ray Ponzo stood in the doorway, jingling the keys like a proud father handing over car keys to a teenager. It's not much, he said, but it's clean, safe neighborhood, mostly retirees and young families. I walked through the space slowly, touched the walls, the countertops, the light switches. Everything worked, everything was solid, everything was mine. Well, not mine, Ray's, but mine to use, mine to live in. The bed's new, Diane added. She was arranging a welcome basket on the kitchen counter, fruit, crackers, a bottle of wine. We had them deliver it yesterday, queen size. You looked like you could use some good sleep. Good sleep, I almost laughed. Thank you, I said. Both of you, I don't know how I'll ever. Stop, Ray held up a hand. You saved my wife's cousin. You dragged Yolanda out of a burning building when you had every reason to walk away. As far as I'm concerned, we're the ones playing catch-up. They left around noon, gave me space. Said they'd see me Monday morning at the office. I stood in the middle of my empty apartment and listened to the silence. No traffic, no sirens, no drunk guys yelling at 3 a.m., no security guards telling me to move along, just quiet. I should have been happy. I wasn't. I was terrified. That first night I couldn't sleep in the bed. It wasn't the bed's fault. It was beautiful. Clean white sheets, fluffy pillows, the kind of mattress they advertise on podcasts, but it was too soft, too comfortable. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt like I was sinking, drowning, disappearing into all that softness with nothing to hold onto. At 2 a.m., I gave up, grabbed a blanket and a pillow and made a nest on the floor beside the front door. The carpet was thin, hard underneath. Perfect. I checked the locks 3 times before I could relax. Deadbolt, chain, deadbolt again, old habits. On the street, you never really sleep, you doze, you drift. One ear always open for footsteps. One eye always cracked for shadows. Your body learns to stay ready, stay alert, stay alive. That doesn't just stop, not because you suddenly have walls around you. I lay on that floor and stared at the ceiling until dawn crept through the window. Morning light. I'd made it to another sunrise. The GoFundMe hit $52,000 by the end of the week. $52,000 for a guy who'd been eating half-eaten burgers out of trash cans a month ago. The first thing I did was call Ray's accountant. I want to prepay 6 months of rent, I said, and set aside money for taxes. Whatever I owe on this, I want it handled now. The accountant, a sharp woman named Patricia with reading glasses on a chain, looked at me like I'd grown a second head. Most people in your situation would be buying a new car, new clothes, taking a vacation. Most people in my situation haven't been homeless for 5 years. She nodded slowly, understanding dawning. You want a cushion. I want to never sleep behind a Waffle House again. We set it up that afternoon, 6 months' rent paid in advance. Emergency fund in a separate account, taxes estimated and reserved. What was left, about $18,000, went into savings, untouchable, just in case the job didn't work out, just in case the world decided to kick me again, just in case. Patricia shook my hand when we finished. Smart man, she said. Most lottery winners are broke within 5 years. You might actually make it. Lottery winner, is that what I was? The key to the city ceremony happened on a Saturday, downtown Greenville, Falls Park. The mayor set up a little stage by the Liberty Bridge, and half the city showed up to watch a homeless guy get handed a giant fake key. I wore a suit Ray had bought me. First suit I'd owned since the divorce. Navy blue, simple. It fit like it was made for me because Diane had insisted on taking me to a tailor. You're not walking up there looking like you borrowed your father's clothes, she'd said. The crowd was bigger than I expected. Hundreds of people, families with kids, old couples holding hands, young professionals taking selfies with the waterfall in the background. And cameras, so many cameras, news crews from every local station, a photographer from the Associated Press. Someone said CNN had sent a stringer. I stood backstage, if you could call a tent behind some bushes backstage, and tried not to throw up. You okay? Yolanda appeared beside me. She was in a wheelchair, her broken leg wrapped in a bright purple cast. Her daughter had wheeled her over. Nervous, I admitted. Why, you already did the hard part. You ran into a burning building. This is just smiling and waving. The building didn't have cameras, she laughed, a warm, rolling laugh that made me feel like I'd known her my whole life. Sean Aldridge, you saved my life. The least you can do is let people thank you for it. The mayor called my name. The crowd cheered. I walked up those steps on legs that felt like jelly, smiled, waved, shook hands. Accepted the giant key that was definitely going in a closet somewhere. And then I saw her. Bridget. She was standing at the back of the crowd, alone, no Roger beside her, no friends, no family. People around her were whispering, pointing. A woman deliberately turned her back when Bridget tried to make eye contact. Brent Montgomery's article had done its work. The whole city knew now. Knew about the affair, knew about the fake charges, knew about the DA's cousin and the knife that never existed. Bridget wasn't a victim anymore. She was a villain, and she knew it. Our eyes met across that crowd, just for a second. I saw something in her face, fear maybe, or regret, or just the raw panic of someone watching their reputation crumble. I didn't smile, didn't gloat. Didn't do anything. I just looked away. She wasn't worth my attention anymore. That night I slept in the bed. It was still too soft, still felt like drowning, but I stayed there anyway. Progress. Monday morning, 8 a.m. Ponzo Enterprises. The building was nothing fancy. A warehouse on Lawrence Road with an office suite attached. The kind of place where real work got done by real people who didn't care about exposed brick or craft coffee. I liked it immediately. Ray met me at the front door. "Ready to work? Ready to learn?" He grinned. "That's what I like to hear." The first week was humbling. Everything had changed while I was living on the street. Everything. Zoom meetings, cloud storage, CRM software that tracked every customer interaction, digital signatures, automated invoicing, Slack channels with names like HVAC memes and out of office. I sat in my little cubicle and felt like a caveman who'd wandered into NASA. "You're staring at that screen like it killed your dog," said a voice behind me. I turned. A young guy, maybe 25. Skinny, with a beard that looked like it was still figuring itself out. He was holding 2 cups of coffee. "Theo," he said, "I handle route logistics. Ray said you might need some help getting up to speed." Ray said, "Right." Theo pulled up a chair, handed me a coffee. "Okay, let's start with the basics. You know what the cloud is?" "A place where my files go to die?" He laughed. "Close enough." "Let me show you." Theo became my technology translator. Every day he'd swing by my desk for an hour, walk me through the software, explain the systems, answer my endless stupid questions without making me feel like an idiot. In return, I taught him about sales. "You're sending cold emails that read like ransom notes," I told him one afternoon, looking at his outreach drafts. "Nobody wants to be sold to, they want to be helped. What's the difference? A sale is a transaction, help is a relationship. You build the relationship first, the sale comes later." He squinted at his screen. "That sounds like a lot more work." "It is, but it works, trust me." By the end of my second week, I'd closed my first account, small one. A plumbing contractor in Spartanburg who needed ductwork for a renovation project. Ray called me into his office. "Heard you landed the Sparkman job." "It's not much, $3,000 maybe." "It's a start." He leaned back in his chair. "You know what I noticed about you, Sean? You don't try to be the smartest guy in the room. You listen, you learn, you adapt. That's how you survive on the street. That's how you survive anywhere." He pulled a folder from his desk. "I've got a project for you. Our delivery routes are a mess. Drivers are zigzagging all over the upstate, wasting gas, wasting time. I need someone to look at it with fresh eyes. I'm a salesman, not a logistics guy. You're a problem solver, that's what I need." I took the folder. Fresh eyes, okay, I could do that. The route optimization project took me 3 weeks. I didn't use any fancy software, didn't need to. I'd spent 5 years walking every inch of Greenville. I knew which roads backed up at rush hour, which intersections had lights that took forever, which shortcuts only locals knew about. I mapped it all out by hand. Old school. Paper and colored pencils, like a kindergartner doing homework. When I presented it to Ray, he stared at my chicken scratch diagrams for a full minute. "This would save us, what, 4 hours a day? 6 if you stagger the morning departures to avoid the Woodruff Road bottleneck. How did you figure this out?" "I walked those routes for years." "When you don't have a car, you learn which paths are fastest." He shook his head slowly. 6 hours a day, 15 drivers, that's 90 hours a week, 4,000 hours a year. He did the math in his head. "Sean, this is worth tens of thousands of dollars to us, in fuel alone." "So I can keep my job?" He laughed, actually laughed out loud. "Keep your job, I'm giving you a raise." Yolanda came by the office one Thursday afternoon. Her leg was healing. She was on crutches now instead of the wheelchair, still had the purple cast covered in signatures from her grandkids. "Lunch?" she asked, poking her head into my cubicle. "You came all the way out here for lunch?" "I came all the way out here to check on you. The lunch is a bonus." We went to a barbecue place down the street. Little hole-in-the-wall joint with plastic chairs and meat that fell apart if you looked at it too hard. "You're doing okay," she said, watching me eat. "Better than okay, you look different." "Different how? Like you belong somewhere again." I set down my pulled pork sandwich. "Yolanda, I need to ask you something." "Shoot." Why are you still talking to me? You got out of the hospital, you're recovering, you could have just sent a card, moved on with your life, but you keep showing up. She considered the question, took a bite of her coleslaw. You know what I remember most about that night? It wasn't the fire, wasn't the smoke, wasn't my leg breaking when I fell out of bed. What then? Your face. When you found me in that bedroom, you were terrified, I could see it, but you didn't run. You grabbed me and you pulled, even though it hurt both of us, even though the ceiling was coming down. That's not nothing, Sean. That's not something you just send a card for. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You're my brother now, whether you like it or not. That's how it works in my family. You save someone's life, you're stuck with them forever. Brother, I hadn't had family in 26 years. I think I can live with that, I said. She grinned. Good, now eat your sandwich, you're still too skinny. 2 months in and life had found a rhythm. Work, home, occasional lunches with Yolanda. Sundays helping Ray reorganize his garage, which was less about the garage and more about the two of us bonding over cold beers and bad classic rock. Normal, boring, beautiful. I'd forgotten what boring felt like. It was a Saturday in early April. Yolanda and I were having lunch at Falls Park near the Liberty Bridge. She'd finally graduated from crutches to a cane, and she wanted to celebrate by walking the trail she'd been missing for months. Look at me, she said, moving slowly but steadily along the path. I'm like a baby, dear, learning to walk all over again. You're doing great. I'm doing mediocre, but mediocre is better than the wheelchair, so I'll take it. We found a bench near the river. The Reedy River, they called it. Not much of a river, really, more like an ambitious creek, but the waterfall was pretty and the park was green and the spring air smelled like dogwood blossoms. I was unwrapping my sandwich when I heard it, a splash, then a scream. Finn, Finn! My head snapped toward the sound. A woman was running along the riverbank, her face twisted in panic. She was pointing at the water, a kid, maybe 7 or 8. He'd fallen in somewhere upstream and the current had grabbed him. He was tumbling through the shallow rapids, his head going under and coming back up, small arms flailing. Not again. I was running before I could think. The river wasn't deep, maybe 3 or 4 feet, but the current was strong and the rocks were slick and the kid was small enough that every wave was pushing him under. I hit the water. Cold. So cold it knocked the breath out of me. April in South Carolina meant warm air, but the water still remembered winter. It bit into my legs, my chest, my arms like 1,000 tiny knives. This wasn't like the fire. Fire was hot and loud and chaotic. Fire screamed at you, told you exactly where the danger was. Water was silent, patient. It didn't fight you. It just pulled, dragged you down inch by inch while you exhausted yourself trying to stay afloat. The kid, Finn, the woman had called him, was 20 feet downstream. I could see his jacket, bright red against the brown water, disappearing and reappearing as he tumbled. I fought the current. 1 step. 2. The rocks shifted under my feet. I went down once, water flooding my mouth, tasting like dirt and leaves in panic. Got up, kept moving. 15 feet. 10. 5. I grabbed him. He was coughing, crying, clinging to me with a grip that would have impressed a professional wrestler. His face was bluish. His lips were purple. He'd been in the water too long. I got you, I said. I got you, hold on. Getting him out was harder than catching him. The current didn't want to let us go. Every step towards shore felt like walking through concrete. My legs were shaking. My arms were numb, but I made it. We collapsed on the bank together, both of us gasping, both of us dripping, both of us alive. The woman reached us 3 seconds later. She dropped to her knees, grabbing the boy, holding him so tight I thought she might squeeze the water right out of him. Finn, Finn, baby, are you okay? Can you hear me? Finn? Mom. The kid's voice was shaky but annoyed, which seemed like a good sign. You're crushing me. She started crying, laughing, crying again, that special kind of hysteria that only comes when you've just watched your child almost die. I lay on my back on the grass and stared at the sky. You have got to be kidding me. The cop showed up 15 minutes later. Same guy from the fire, buzz cut. Fresh-faced, he took one look at me and stopped walking. You again? Me again? He shook his head slowly. Sir, I've been on the force for 4 years, never seen the same civilian involved in 2 rescues. I don't even know what that is. Lucky, something. He took our statements. The paramedics checked out Finn, no hypothermia, just cold and scared. They wrapped him in one of those shiny emergency blankets that made him look like a baked potato. The mom, Jean Marie, I learned, sat beside him on the ambulance bumper, one hand on his shoulder like she was afraid he'd disappear if she let go. "He was just climbing on the rocks," she kept saying. "I told him to be careful. I told him. He slipped and then the current, I couldn't. It's not your fault," I said. "Kids do dumb things, it's their job." She looked at me, really looked, eyes puffy from crying, mascara streaked down her cheeks. Hair that had probably started the day in a neat ponytail but had given up sometime during the screaming. She was a mess, a beautiful mess. Where did that thought come from? "You saved my son's life," she said. "I was just there." "You were just there," she laughed a little wildly. "You were just there and you jumped into freezing water and you didn't even hesitate." Her voice broke. She pressed her hand to her mouth. I'm sorry, I don't usually, I'm a mess, I'm such a mess." I haven't slept in 2 days because Finn had nightmares and my car broke down and I was supposed to bring him here to get out of the apartment and now he almost, she was spiraling, I recognized it. The way the words tumbled out faster and faster, thoughts crashing into each other like cars on an icy highway. "Hey!" I crouched down beside her, made myself small, unthreatening. "Hey." "Look at me," she did. "Finn is okay, you're okay. The scary part is over, just breathe," she breathed. "Good again." She breathed again. "You're not a mess," I said. "You're a mom who just got the worst scare of her life. There's a difference." Something shifted in her face. The panic receded just a little, enough for her to see me clearly. "What's your name?" she asked. Sean Aldridge." Her eyes widened. "Wait, the Sean Aldridge, the guy from the fire, the homeless hero," I winced. "I really wish they'd stop calling me that." She stared at me for a long moment, then she burst out laughing, real laughter this time, the kind that releases all the tension your body's been holding. "I got rescued by a celebrity." "I'm not a celebrity. I'm just a guy who keeps being in the wrong place at the wrong time." "Or the right place," she extended her hand. "Jean Marie Thornton, and that trouble magnet over there is my son, Finnegan, Finn for short." I shook her hand. Her grip was firm despite the trembling. "Nice to meet you, Jean Marie." "Nice to meet you too, Sean Aldridge." She smiled, wobbly but genuine. "I'd say I owe you a drink, but I'm pretty sure you're going to need about 6 after today." I smiled back. "I could probably use a coffee, maybe 2. The second rescue went viral. Of course it did. Someone in the park had filmed the whole thing. Shaky cell phone footage of me splashing through the rapids, grabbing Finn, dragging him to shore. It was on TikTok within the hour. Twitter picked it up next, then Facebook, then every news outlet in America. "Homeless hero strikes again? Twice blessed, the man who can't stop saving lives, from fire to water, Greenville's guardian angel. That one made me throw up a little in my mouth. The interview requests started pouring in Monday morning. Good Morning America, Today Show, CNN. ESPN, for some reason, apparently saving kids made you sports adjacent now. Even Stephen Colbert's people reached out, though they said the booking was months away. Ray called an emergency meeting in his office. "We need to talk about this," he said, closing the door. "I know, I'm sorry. If this is too much attention for the company, I can." "Too much attention, Sean?" He laughed incredulously. "Do you know how much free advertising we've gotten this week? Every story mentions you work for Ponzo Enterprises. Our phone has been ringing off the hook. We've had to bring in temps just to handle the inquiries." "Oh, I thought you'd be mad." "Mad, I'm thrilled, but we need to be smart about this. The media circus isn't going away. We need to manage it, not run from it." He slid a business card across the desk. "My nephew is a PR consultant, good kid, handles crisis communications for some of the bigger companies in Charlotte. I think you should talk to him." Crisis communications. Is that what my life was now? A crisis? The PR nephew's name was Derek, and he was annoyingly good at his job. "First rule," he said at our initial meeting. "You control the narrative. Not them. You decide which interviews you do, which stories you tell, which parts of your life are on or off limits." "What if I don't want to do any interviews?" "Then you become a mystery. Mysteries make people dig harder. They'll find every skeleton in your closet and rattle them for clicks." I thought about Bridget, about Roger, about the ongoing investigation. "Some skeletons are already out. I read Montgomery's article. Good stuff. Actually, that's your biggest asset right now. The redemption angle. Wrongfully accused man rises from the ashes to become a hero. That's not just news, that's a movie. A movie, good lord." "Let's start small," Derek said. "Local morning show this week. GMA next week. We'll build up to Colbert." We. I'll be with you every step, prepping you, guiding you, making sure you don't say anything that'll end up as a Twitter scandal. He grinned. Trust me, I'm very good at this. I trusted him, not because he asked me to, because he proved it. The local interviews went smoothly. Derek coached me on talking points, on pivoting from uncomfortable questions, on the art of saying nothing while appearing to say something meaningful. But he also pushed back when producers wanted to exploit me. They want you to cry on camera, he said after one particularly aggressive pre-interview. I told them no. I appreciate that. Your trauma isn't entertainment. Anyone who thinks otherwise can find another story. I liked Derek. The national exposure brought gifts. Care packages from strangers, fan mail from every state in the country. A woman in Ohio sent a handmade quilt with my face stitched into it, which was both touching and deeply unsettling. Someone started a second GoFundMe without my permission. Derek shut it down within hours. Scammers, he explained. They pop up whenever someone goes viral, pretend to be collecting money on your behalf, then disappear with the cash. The world was weird. But there were beautiful moments too. A little girl in Wisconsin who'd been afraid of water after a near-drowning watched the video of me saving Finn. Her mom wrote to say it had inspired her to try swimming lessons again. A veteran in Texas who'd been homeless for 3 years saw my story and finally reached out to the VA for help. He was in transitional housing now, learning to code. A teacher in Chicago used my story as a lesson in her high school ethics class. The kids had written essays about heroism and second chances. Those letters I kept. Those letters mattered, but fame had teeth. The first death threat arrived 2 weeks after the river rescue. It came to the Ponzo Enterprises office, addressed to me by name. A single sheet of paper with cut-out magazine letters like something from a bad movie. You don't deserve IT, stop pretending. Derek called the police. They filed a report, said there wasn't much they could do unless the threats escalated. This is normal, Derek said, though his face was pale. Anyone with visibility gets weirdos, it doesn't mean anything. I wanted to believe him. Then the emails started, hundreds of them. Most were positive. Thank you, you're inspiring, God bless you, but some were not. People who thought I'd staged the rescues for attention. People who thought I was scamming the GoFundMe donors. People who dug up my criminal record and decided I was dangerous, regardless of what Montgomery's article said. One guy sent me a detailed analysis of why I was a crisis actor working for the deep state. I stopped reading my emails after that. Through it all, Jean Marie and Finn became a constant presence. It started with thank you dinners. Jean Marie insisted on cooking for me once a week, the least I can do for saving my son's life. And I insisted on bringing dessert because showing up empty-handed felt wrong. Finn thought I was the coolest person alive, which was hilarious given that I was a 38-year-old former copier salesman with a criminal record and trust issues. Did you really live outside? He asked one night over spaghetti at their small apartment. Finn, Jean Marie looked mortified. You can't just ask people. It's okay. I set down my fork. Yeah, buddy, I really did for a long time. Wasn't that scary? Sometimes, but you learn to adapt, find safe spots, make friends with other people in the same situation, survive. Like camping. Sure, I smiled. Like really, really long camping. He considered this with the gravity only a 7-year-old can muster. I'm glad you don't have to camp anymore. Me too, buddy, me too. Later, after Finn was in bed, Jean Marie and I sat on her tiny balcony with glasses of cheap wine. You're good with him, she said. He's easy to be good with. He's not, actually. He's a terror. Has ADHD, probably. We're waiting on the official diagnosis. His teachers say he's disruptive. Other parents avoid playdates. She swirled her wine. But with you, he's calm, like he knows you actually see him. I thought about that. When you're homeless, people look through you, like you're not even there. It messes with your head, makes you feel invisible. I shrugged. Kids aren't invisible. Kids are just small humans trying to figure out a confusing world. I think Finn gets that I understand what it's like to feel ignored. Jean Marie was quiet for a long moment. His dad left when Finn was 3, she said finally. Just vanished, didn't even leave a note. I came home from work and his closet was empty. I'm sorry. Don't be. Kevin was a disaster. I just didn't see it until it was too late. She laughed bitterly. Great judge of character, that's me. We all trust the wrong people sometimes. She looked at me, really looked. Your ex-wife, the one from the article, she really testified against you? I nodded. How do you not hate her? I thought about Bridget at the ceremony, alone, shunned, watching her careful life crumble. I did. For years, hating her was the only thing that kept me warm some nights. I drained my wine. But hate is heavy. Eventually you get tired of carrying it. So you forgave her? No, I shook my head. I just stopped giving her space in my head. There's a difference. Jean-Marie smiled, slow, thoughtful. You're not what I expected, Sean Aldridge. What did you expect? I don't know. Someone angrier, more damaged? You've been through hell, but you're still kind. Kind. Was I kind? I didn't feel kind. I felt tired, cautious, permanently braced for the next disaster. But sitting there on that balcony with the warm spring air and the cheap wine and this woman who looked at me like I was worth knowing. Maybe kind wasn't the worst thing to be. That night driving home, I thought about Jean-Marie's face when Finn had asked about camping. The way she'd winced, then watched to see how I'd handle it. The way she'd relaxed when I didn't make it weird. She was a good mom, a tired mom, a woman doing her best with limited resources and an absent co-parent and a kid who needed more than she could give. I knew that exhaustion. Recognized it like an old friend. And for the first time in years, I wondered if maybe, just maybe, I had something to offer someone besides trouble. Dangerous thought, probably stupid, but I couldn't quite shake it. The Homeless Hero, Part 3. The legacy New York City smelled like exhaust fumes, hot pretzels, and ambition. I'd never been to Manhattan before, never had a reason. When I was selling copiers, my territory was the Carolinas. When I was homeless, my territory was wherever I could find a dry spot to sleep. But now I was standing in the lobby of the Ed Sullivan Theater on Broadway, wearing a suit that cost more than my first car, waiting to appear on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. Life is strange. You're fidgeting, Jean-Marie said. I'm not fidgeting. You've adjusted your tie 4 times in the last 2 minutes. That's fidgeting. She was right. Of course she was right. Jean-Marie had this annoying habit of being right about everything, especially when it came to reading my nervous tells. The past 3 months had been a whirlwind. After the river rescue went viral, the media requests had exploded. Derek had carefully curated which ones I accepted, building what he called a narrative arc that would maximize positive coverage while minimizing exposure to gotcha journalism. This was the culmination. Colbert, prime time, millions of viewers. I was going to throw up. Hey, Jean-Marie touched my arm. Look at me. I looked. She was beautiful tonight. Not fancy beautiful, not trying too hard beautiful, just herself. A simple green dress that brought out her eyes, hair down instead of her usual practical ponytail, a nervous smile that matched my own. You've got this, she said. Just be yourself, that's what people respond to. What if myself is a sweaty mess who forgets how to form sentences? Then you'll be a relatable, sweaty mess. America loves relatable. I laughed despite myself. When did you become a media expert? I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos on the flight. How to support your nervous friend on national television. Very informative. Friend, is that what we were? The interview itself was a blur. Colbert was warm, funny. Asked questions that let me tell my story without making me feel like a performing monkey. We talked about the fire, the river, the years in between. I didn't cry on camera. Derek had been very clear about that. Emotion is good, he'd said. Sobbing is not. You want people to admire you, not pity you. So I kept it together, told the truth without drowning in it, made a few jokes. Got a few laughs. When it was over, the audience applauded. Colbert shook my hand and said, "You're a good man, Sean Aldridge." A good man, was I? After the taping, a producer handed me an envelope. A fan dropped this off, she said. Wanted you to have a nice dinner while you're in the city, reservations already made. Inside the envelope was a gift card to a restaurant called Carbone. I'd never heard of it, but Jean-Marie's eyes went wide when she saw the name. Sean, that place is impossible to get into, like celebrities wait 3 months, impossible. Someone pulled strings, I guess. Someone pulled a lot of strings. She looked at the gift card, her face did something complicated. This is too much, we can't accept this. The producer said it's already paid for, reservations in an hour. She bit her lip. Finn's with Yolanda at the hotel, I should probably. Yolanda said she'd watch him all night, said we needed, and I quote, some adult time without a 7-year-old asking why buildings are so tall. Jean-Marie laughed, that surprised laugh that always made my chest feel warm. She really said that. Word for word, I have the text. She considered, then nodded. Okay, fine, but I'm not dressed for fancy Italian food. You look perfect. The words came out before I could stop them. Jean Marie's cheeks flushed. Smooth talker. I'm a salesman. It's in my blood. Carbone was everything you'd expect from a restaurant that celebrities waited months to enter. Red leather booths. Frank Sinatra on the speakers. Waiters in white jackets who called you sir without a hint of irony. The kind of place where a single pasta dish cost more than a week of groceries. We ordered too much food, talked too much, laughed too much. It felt like a date. Was it a date? I didn't know anymore. The lines had blurred somewhere between the weekly dinners and the shared trauma and the way Finn had started calling me Mr. Sean like I was someone worth respecting. After the main course, some kind of veal that melted on the tongue, Jean Marie set down her fork and looked at me. Can I ask you something? Anything. Why me? I blinked. What do you mean? You're famous now. Like actually famous. You could date anyone, models, actresses, women who don't have a 7-year-old and a deadbeat ex and bags under their eyes from working double shifts. Jean Marie, I'm serious. Her voice was steady, but I could see something fragile underneath. I've been trying to figure it out for months, why you keep showing up, why you're so good with Finn. Why you look at me like, she trailed off. Like what? Like I matter. The words hit me somewhere deep, somewhere I'd kept locked for a long time. You do matter, I said, but why? You barely know me. I know enough. Do you? She leaned forward. Sean, I'm a mess. I work 50 hours a week at a job I hate. I cry in my car sometimes because I'm so tired I can't remember the last time I slept through the night. I have $47,000 in student loans and a credit score that makes banks laugh. I'm not some reward for being a hero. I'm just a person. I was quiet for a long moment. Then I said, Can I tell you something? She nodded. When I was living on the street, I used to watch families at parks. At restaurants, through windows at night. I'd watch them eat dinner together or help their kids with homework or just exist together. I traced my finger along the edge of my water glass. I used to think that was something other people got, normal people, people who hadn't made the wrong choices or trusted the wrong person. I thought I'd lost my chance at that, permanently. I looked up at her. And then I pulled your son out of a river and you invited me to dinner and Finn asked me about camping and you told me about your car breaking down while you were crying on a balcony with cheap wine and I thought, my voice cracked, just a little. I thought, maybe I haven't lost my chance. Maybe this is what second chances look like, messy and tired and real. Jean Marie's eyes were shining. Sean, I'm not looking for a reward. I'm not looking for someone perfect. I'm looking for someone who sees me, the actual me, not the guy on TV, not the homeless hero. Just me. A tear slipped down her cheek. She wiped it away quickly. You're going to make me ruin my mascara. You're not wearing mascara. I know, that's how you know I'm serious. She laughed wetly. God, I'm such a disaster. You're not a disaster. You're a mom who's doing her best with no help and no safety net. That's not a disaster. That's brave. She reached across the table, took my hand. I like you, Sean Aldridge. I like you too, Jean Marie Thornton. But I need to know something first. Anything. Is this real? Her grip tightened. Or is this just trauma bonding? Two broken people clinging to each other because we don't know what else to do? I'd asked myself the same question 100 times. Late at night, staring at my ceiling, wondering if I was confusing gratitude for attraction, proximity for connection. I don't know, I admitted. I don't know if anyone ever knows for sure. But I know that when I'm with you, I feel like myself. Not the version of myself that performs for cameras or impresses bosses or tries to prove he deserves a second chance. Just me. I squeezed her hand back. And I know that feeling is rare, and I don't want to let it go just because I'm scared of getting it wrong. She was quiet for a long time. Then she stood up, walked around the table, and kissed me. Soft, tentative, a question more than a statement. I answered. We walked back to the hotel through Times Square. The lights were overwhelming, billboards the size of buildings, crowds that never thinned. The kind of sensory assault that would have sent me into a panic a year ago. But Jean Marie's hand was in mine, and the night air was cool, and somewhere back at the hotel, Finn was probably driving Yolanda crazy with questions about skyscrapers. What happens now? Jean Marie asked. I don't know, we go home, see what happens next. That's terrifyingly vague. I prefer romantically open-ended. She laughed, leaned into me as we walked. You're ridiculous. And yet you kissed me anyway. Temporary insanity? I'll take it. 6 months later, October in Greenville was beautiful. The leaves were turning. The air had that crisp bite that reminded you summer was over. Pumpkins appeared on porches like they'd sprouted overnight. I was in my apartment, our apartment now, sort of, since Jean Marie and Finn had started staying over on weekends, when my phone buzzed. Brent Montgomery. Turn on Channel 4 right now. I grabbed the remote. Breaking news this afternoon. Greenville County District Attorney Harold Rush has been indicted on multiple counts of corruption, including abuse of power, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy to commit fraud. The anchor's face was grave, professional, the kind of expression news people practiced in mirrors. The indictment comes after an 18-month investigation by the state attorney general's office, prompted in part by reporting from the Greenville Herald. Sources tell us that Rush allegedly used his position to protect family members and business associates from criminal prosecution while pursuing charges against their personal enemies. My hands were shaking. I sat down on the couch. Couldn't stand any more. Rush, who has served as district attorney for 12 years, released a statement through his attorney denying all charges and claiming the investigation is politically motivated. He has been released on bond and is expected to surrender his position pending trial. The screen cut to file footage of Harold Rush, the same face I'd seen across a courtroom 6 years ago. The same cold eyes that had offered me a deal I couldn't refuse. Older now, grayer, but still that same expression of smug certainty, only now that certainty had cracks in it. In a related development, authorities have also arrested Roger Rush, the district attorney's cousin, and his business partner Bridget Aldridge on charges of embezzlement and securities fraud related to their work at Medcore Solutions. The screen changed, and there she was, Bridget, being led out of an office building in handcuffs, her blonde hair disheveled, her designer suit wrinkled. Her face a mask of shock and fury. She looked directly at the camera as they put her in the police car. I felt nothing, no triumph, no satisfaction, no vindication, just a strange, hollow emptiness, like a wound that had finally stopped hurting, not because it healed, but because I'd simply gotten used to the pain. Sean, Jean Marie was standing in the kitchen doorway. She'd been making coffee. What's going on? I pointed at the TV. She watched. Her hand came up to cover her mouth. Oh my God, is that? Yeah. And she? Yeah. She crossed the room, sat down beside me, took my hand. We watched together as the news anchor explained how the investigation had unfolded, how Montgomery's initial article had prompted questions, how those questions had led to subpoenas, how those subpoenas had revealed a pattern of corruption stretching back over a decade. Roger and Bridget had been skimming money from Medcore for years, millions of dollars funneled through shell companies and fake consulting fees. Harold had protected them, making problems disappear whenever auditors got too close. Until now. How do you feel? Jean Marie asked quietly. I thought about it, really thought. Empty, I said finally. I thought I'd feel, I don't know, happy, victorious, like all those years finally meant something. And you don't. I feel like I wasted so much time hating them, so much energy, and now they're just people on a TV screen, people I used to know, people who don't matter anymore. She squeezed my hand. That's called moving on. Is it? Yeah, it is, Ray called an hour later. You watching the news? I'm watching. Good, because I've got better news. I could hear the grin in his voice. My lawyers have been working with the state attorney general's office. With Harold Rush out of the picture, they're reviewing every case he ever touched, including yours. My heart stopped. What are you saying? I'm saying your conviction is being vacated. The plea deal was coerced. The charges were fabricated. It's all getting thrown out. I couldn't breathe. Sean, you there? I'm here. Ray, are you sure? I've got the paperwork in my hand. It'll take a few weeks to process, but by Thanksgiving you'll have a clean record. No felony, no temporary insanity. Nothing. It's like it never happened. Like it never happened. 6 years, 5 of them on the street, all of it because of a lie, and now with the stroke of a pen it would disappear. I don't know what to say. Say you'll let me buy you a beer to celebrate. Hell, say you'll let me buy you a whole damn brewery. I laughed. It came out shaky, wet. Thank you, Ray, for everything. Don't thank me. Thank Brent Montgomery. That reporter's the one who wouldn't let go. A pause. And thank yourself. You survived, Sean. A lot of people wouldn't have. You did. After I hung up, I sat on the couch for a long time. Jean Marie brought me coffee, sat beside me, didn't say anything. Sometimes silence is the best comfort. The trial happened 6 months later. I didn't attend. Didn't need to. The evidence was overwhelming. Harold Rush was convicted on all counts and sentenced to 8 years in federal prison. Roger got 5 years. Bridget got 3 plus restitution. I watched the verdict on the news, same as everyone else. Bridget cried when the judge read her sentence. Real tears. The first genuine emotion I'd seen from her in years. I turned off the TV, went outside. Breathed the spring air, moved on. The Father-Son Day event at Greenville Elementary was held on a Saturday in June. I stood in the parking lot wearing matching navy blue sweatsuits with Finn, feeling more nervous than I had on national television. "You look weird," Finn said. "Thanks, buddy." "No, I mean you look nervous. You're never nervous." "I'm nervous about lots of things. I'm just good at hiding it." He considered this with the solemnity only an 8-year-old can muster. "That's a good skill. I should learn that." "Maybe wait until you're older. Being nervous is okay when you're a kid. It's how you learn stuff." We walked toward the gymnasium together. The parking lot was full of dads and sons, all in various states of matching outfits. Some had gone all out: capes, costumes, face paint. Others had settled for matching baseball caps. We were somewhere in the middle, navy sweatsuits with white stripes. Jean Marie had picked them out, claiming they made us look like a discount athletic brand ad. She wasn't wrong. Inside, the gym had been transformed into an obstacle course. Stations for 3-legged races, egg and spoon relays, basketball free throws, and something involving pool noodles that I couldn't quite figure out. Finn's eyes went wide. "This is awesome." "Ready to lose?" "Ready to destroy you, old man," I laughed. "Old man, I'm 39. That's basically ancient. I'm going to remember that when you ask for ice cream later." We did not win the father-son competition. We came in 7th out of 12 teams, which Finn insisted was basically the middle, which is basically fine. But it didn't matter. What mattered was the 3-legged race, where we fell twice and laughed so hard we couldn't get up. What mattered was the basketball station, where Finn made 3 shots in a row and looked at me like he'd just won the Olympics. What mattered was the lunch break, where we sat on the bleachers eating hot dogs and watching other families, and Finn said very quietly, "Thanks for coming." "Of course, buddy, I wouldn't miss it." "Mom said you didn't have to. She said it was just a dumb school thing." "Your mom's wrong. This isn't dumb. This is important." He picked at his hot dog bun. "The other kids have their real dads." My heart clenched. "Finn, I know my dad left. Mom told me. She said he had problems and it wasn't my fault." He looked up at me, those big brown eyes, so much like Jean Marie's. "But sometimes I wonder if it was, if I was too loud or too annoying or too. Hey." I set down my hot dog, turned to face him fully. "Look at me." He looked. "Your dad leaving had nothing to do with you, nothing. Some people aren't ready to be parents. Some people are too scared or too selfish or too broken to stick around. That's about them, not you, never you." "But why did he?" "I don't know. I can't answer that. Only he can." I put my hand on his shoulder. "But I can tell you this, you are not too loud, you are not too annoying. You are one of the coolest kids I've ever met, and anyone who can't see that doesn't deserve you." His lower lip trembled. "Do you mean that?" "I mean every word." He threw his arms around me, hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. I hugged him back. Over his shoulder, I saw other parents watching, some smiling, some looking away to give us privacy. I didn't care. After the event, we walked to the car together. Finn was bouncing, the earlier sadness forgotten in the glow of participation ribbons and promised ice cream. He was describing, in exhaustive detail, how he was going to tell his mom about every single moment of the day. I listened, nodded, made appropriate impressed noises, and then he stopped. Turned to look at me. "Mr. Sean?" "Yeah, buddy. If you marry Mom." He scrunched up his face, working through the thought. "Would you be my dad?" The question hit me like a truck. I knelt down, put myself at his eye level. "Finn, that's a big question. I know, Mom says big questions need big answers. Your mom's a smart lady." I took a breath. "Here's what I can tell you. I love your mom very much, and I love hanging out with you. You're funny and smart, and you ask really good questions." "But, no, but just a promise." I held out my pinky. "If your mom and I get married someday, I won't try to replace your dad. I'll be something different, something new. I'll be your friend first, and maybe if you want something more later, but only if you want." "That's your choice, not mine." He stared at my pinky. "You promise?" "I promise." He hooked his pinky around mine, shook. "Okay," he said. "I can work with that." I laughed, ruffled his hair. "Come on, ice cream awaits." That night, after I dropped Finn off with Jean Marie and watched them disappear into their apartment, I drove to the mall, not a place I usually went. Too crowded, too loud. Too many memories of a life I used to have, but tonight I had a purpose. The jewelry store was small, family-owned, the kind of place with velvet displays and an old man behind the counter who looked like he'd been selling rings since the Roosevelt administration. "Can I help you?" he asked. "I'm looking for an engagement ring." He studied me over his glasses. "First time?" "Second, technically. But it's been a while. Any particular style?" I thought about Jean Marie, her practical hands, her simple tastes, the way she'd laughed when I'd called her perfect in that fancy restaurant. "Something real," I said. "Not flashy, not trying to impress anyone, just honest." The old man smiled. "I think I have exactly what you're looking for." He reached into the case and pulled out a ring. Cushion-cut diamond, not huge but clear, set in a simple gold band with small accent stones on the sides. It was beautiful, it was her. "This one," I said. "You didn't even ask the price." "Doesn't matter, this is the one." He wrapped it up. I paid with my own money, not GoFundMe, not charity, mine, and walked out of the mall with a small velvet box in my pocket. A brand new ring for a brand new life. Lake Lure was 2 hours from Greenville. I'd found it online while researching most romantic spots in North Carolina. The reviews were glowing: crystal clear water, mountain views, beaches that looked like something out of a postcard. I told Jean Marie I wanted to take her somewhere special, a weekend trip, just us. Yolanda would watch Finn. She said yes. We arrived on a Friday afternoon. The cabin I'd rented was small but perfect. Wood-paneled walls, a fireplace, a porch that looked out over the lake. The kind of place that made you want to disappear from the world for a while. We spent Saturday hiking, swimming, eating overpriced sandwiches at a lakeside cafe, and pretending we were the kind of people who did this all the time. That night after dinner, I suggested a walk on the beach. The sun was setting, orange and pink and purple reflected in the still water like a painting. Jean Marie took my hand. "This is beautiful," she said. "You're beautiful. You've said that before. I'll keep saying it until you believe me." She laughed, leaned into me. We walked in silence for a while. Just the sound of our footsteps and the gentle lap of water against the shore. Then I stopped. "Jean Marie," she turned to face me. The sunset caught her hair, made her look like she was glowing. "I had a whole speech prepared," I said. "Something about second chances and finding hope in unexpected places and all that poetic stuff. And I forgot every word of it the second I looked at you." She smiled, that smile that still made my chest ache. "So improvise." I reached into my pocket, pulled out the velvet box, her breath caught. "Sean, Jean Marie Thornton." I got down on one knee. The sand was cold and damp and I didn't care. I spent 5 years thinking my life was over, thinking I'd lost everything that mattered. And then I pulled your son out of a river and you invited me to dinner, and somewhere between the cheap wine and the Tuesday spaghetti nights and the three-legged races, I realized I was wrong. I opened the box. The ring caught the last light of the sunset. "I didn't lose everything. I was just waiting to find you." Tears were streaming down her face. "Will you marry me?" She didn't answer with words. She dropped to her knees, grabbed my face, and kissed me like the world was ending. "Is that a yes?" I managed when we finally came up for air. "That's a yes, you ridiculous man, that's a yes." I slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, 10 years later. The Greenville City Council chamber was packed, standing room only, cameras in the back. Reporters with notepads. Faces I recognized and faces I didn't, all of them watching as the outgoing mayor handed me the ceremonial gavel. "It is my honor," Mayor Williams said, her voice echoing through the microphone, "to introduce the 47th mayor of Greenville, South Carolina, a man who needs no introduction. A man who has dedicated the past decade to serving our most vulnerable citizens. A man who proves every single day that second chances are worth fighting for." She turned to me. "Mayor Sean Aldridge." The chamber erupted. I stepped forward, raised my hand. Placed it on the Bible that Jean Marie held open, the same Bible that had belonged to my mother, recovered from storage after my record was expunged. "I, Sean Michael Aldridge, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of Mayor of Greenville." The words felt surreal, like they belonged to someone else. Some alternate universe version of me who hadn't slept behind dumpsters or eaten from trash cans or watched his entire life collapse because he trusted the wrong woman. But they were my words, my oath, my future. So help me God! The crowd cheered. I looked out at the faces. Jean Marie in the front row, tears streaming down her face, wearing the same ring I'd put on her finger at Lake Lure. Finnegan Aldridge now, legally adopted 3 years after the wedding when his biological father signed away his rights to avoid child support. 18 years old, taller than me, wearing a suit that made him look like a young professional instead of the scared kid I'd pulled from a river. Ray Ponzo, my best man, my mentor, my friend, grinning like a proud father. Yolanda still walking with a slight limp from that long-ago fire, holding her granddaughter on her hip. Even Brent Montgomery was there, notebook in hand, still chasing stories after all these years. My family, my community, my people. Thank you, I said into the microphone. Thank you all. The applause slowly faded. I took a breath. 12 years ago, I was sleeping behind a Waffle House on the south side of this city. I was hungry, I was cold, I was invisible, and I was certain, absolutely certain, that my life was over. Silence, total, complete silence. I was wrong. I looked down at my hands, at the scar that still marked my left palm, the burn from a door that was too hot to touch, from a night that changed everything. This city gave me a second chance, not because I deserved it, not because I'd earned it, but because that's what Greenville does. We take care of each other. We lift each other up. We refuse to let anyone stay invisible. I looked up. But we can do better. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Right now, there are over 300 people experiencing homelessness in Greenville County. 300 men and women and children who are sleeping in shelters, in cars, under bridges. 300 people who are one bad break away from giving up entirely. I thought about the man I used to be, the man who'd learned to value a shopping cart more than hope. During my campaign, I promised to reform our approach to homelessness, not just more shelters, though we need those too, but real systemic change. Job training programs that don't discriminate against people with criminal records, mental health services that are actually accessible, housing first initiatives that give people stability before expecting them to fix everything else. I straightened my spine. Because here's what I learned in those 5 years on the street: nobody chooses homelessness. Nobody wakes up one morning and decides they'd rather sleep in the cold than in a bed. People end up homeless because systems fail them, and it's our job, my job, to fix those systems. The applause started again. Louder this time, more sustained. I waited for it to fade. I won't pretend this will be easy. Change never is. There will be setbacks, disagreements. Days when it feels like we're not making any progress at all. I found Jean Marie's eyes in the crowd. But I've learned something else in the past decade, something more important than any policy or program. I smiled. I've learned that hope is stubborn. It survives things it has no right to survive. It hides in unexpected places, in a stranger's kindness, in a child's question, in a second chance you never thought you'd get. I raised my hand, showed them the scar. This scar used to remind me of the worst night of my life, the night I lost everything I owned, the night I thought was the end. I lowered my hand. Now it reminds me of the night everything began. The night I stopped being invisible, the night I started becoming the person I was always meant to be. I looked out at my city, my home, my future. So here's my promise to you, Greenville. I will fight for the invisible. I will speak for the voiceless. I will never forget where I came from or the people who helped me get here. I placed my hand over my heart. Because I'm not just your mayor. I'm proof that second chances work, and I intend to spend every day of this administration making sure everyone in this city gets the same chance I did. The chamber exploded. Afterward, at the reception, I found a quiet corner away from the crowd. Jean Marie appeared beside me, slipped her hand into mine. Hell of a speech. I had good material. She laughed, leaned into me. Finn's over there telling everyone his dad is the mayor. I think he signed 3 autographs. He's ridiculous. He's proud of you, we all are. I looked at her, this woman who'd taken a chance on a broken man, who'd let him into her life, her home, her heart. Thank you, I said. For what? For believing in me, even when I didn't believe in myself. She reached up, touched my face. You made it easy. I really didn't. Okay, you made it moderately difficult, she grinned. But worth it. I kissed her, right there in the corner of the Greenville City Council chamber, surrounded by politicians and reporters and a city full of people who were counting on me. I love you, I said. I love you too, Mr. Mayor. That night after the reception, after the handshakes and the photos and the endless congratulations, I drove to the south side of the city. Alone. I parked behind the Waffle House, the same Waffle House where I'd spent so many cold nights, where I'd learned to value a shopping cart more than my own dignity. The dumpster enclosure was still there, same chain-link fence, same concrete pad. But something was different. A small plaque had been installed on the wall, bronze, simple. I walked over, read the inscription. In honor of Sean Aldridge, who rose from this spot to become a voice for the voiceless. May this remind us that every person has value and every story deserves a second chapter. I hadn't known about the plaque. Someone must have arranged it without telling me. Ray, probably, or maybe Yolanda, or maybe just the city itself, finally seeing what had always been invisible. I stood there for a long time, remembering the cold, the hunger, the despair, the scream that changed everything. The fire, the water, the woman who believed in me when I'd stopped believing in myself. The son who asked if I'd be his dad. The city that gave me a second chance. I traced my finger over the scar on my palm. It didn't hurt anymore. It hadn't hurt in years, because scars aren't just reminders of pain. They're proof that you survived, proof that you healed, proof that the wound, no matter how deep, wasn't the end of the story. I got back in my car, drove home. Jean-Marie and Finn were waiting on the porch, silhouetted against the warm light of the living room. My family, my home, my second chance. I walked up the steps, wrapped my arms around both of them, and held on tight. The story wasn't over. It was just beginning.